So in this video, I wanted to talk about some of the things that I miss about the US. And there are many, actually, especially in contrast to having been here in France for a good couple of years, trying to settle in and become part of the systems here and how things work. I did a video early on this channel about leaving the US, and it might be the reason how you got to know this channel to begin with. But I talked about the reasons why we were done with the US, why it felt like the end of a chapter, we were done, ready to move on and explore Europe. And then about a year ago, I did another video comparing France to the US, and France obviously won out. I mean, it's the right place for us. We love it here. It's fantastic, and we'll do anything necessary to settle in and be here for the rest of our lives. At least, that's the current plan. Now that sounds negative towards the US, and the fact is that it's got a lot of great things going for it, and that's true of any country. It's got its pros and cons. So I want to talk about those things that I in particular miss. The first thing is how we had everything figured out to the T. Everything was in its perfect place in a way that just sounds so wonderful now, if we could have that here. We lived in this wonderful home that was custom made perfectly for our needs. We had everything, the accumulation of things from decades where you would be able to access anything you wanted. You wanted a particular item, you opened a drawer, there it was. You need a tool, you go to the garage and you have everything in every size. All those things created a sense of stability, right? All that stuff grounds you. It makes you feel settled. You don't worry about these things. You take them for granted, really. In fact, the language was so easy. Everyone spoke English. Everyone spoke my language. I could express myself to anyone easily without thinking about it. They would understand me. I wouldn't have to ask them to repeat. I wouldn't have to repeat myself what I was saying. So all that ease is great. You miss it. You miss it, especially, again, in contrast to living in a new place where you're trying to settle and there's so much to worry about because on a daily basis, we're thinking about so many things, right? The medical system, driver licenses, the language, all these things. It's sort of like they're there the moment you wake up and you have to think about them and deal with them. Another example is, going to my dentist. I could pick up the phone, talk to the receptionist, my friendly gal, and say, okay, I need to come in for a cleaning or I have a problem. And then I get in my car, I go 10 minutes away to this totally predictable place, to my nice dentist that I loved, and I don't have to think about where to go here. Where do I go? We live in the countryside where it's a medical desert, as they call it, and so you have to go into Paris where the services are available. And it is more bureaucratic here whenever you need to see somebody, and that takes work, that takes research. We don't have all our favorite people figured out. There's more layers, it feels like, so far to the medical system, so we're trying to sort that out. The flip side to all this is obviously that you get settled, right? You get in a routine. Everything's so predictable, you don't have to think. As a result, life gets boring, right? There's no looking for things. There's no adventure in it. And the part that I like about being here in France is that it's keeping us on our toes all the time. Now, eventually we're going to settle. Eventually we're going to have everything in place again, where everything's perfect and predictable. Until then, we're having to use our noodles. We're having to think. We're having to figure things out. And that keeps you young. That keeps you alive. That keeps you engaged. And there is that aspect of it that I like. Now, at times when it gets really hard, if you ask me, yes, I miss the US and I miss how perfect it all was. You crave that, you want it back. The other thing I miss about the US is that everything seemed to be available all the time. You wanted to grab a bite, you'd go to a restaurant, just pretty much between 8 and 8 or whatever hours, You wanted to go to the local store to grab whatever, and they were going to be open for you, waiting for you, fully staffed. Here in France, a little different. You want to go to your local hardware store, at least in the countryside, they're going to be closed between 12 and 2. You can expect that a lot of places will be closed for lunch. We were at a nursery in a bigger town, not far from here, big nursery, and they were closed 12 to 2. It's like you better calculate what you do because you could run into a lot of trouble. So you have to do your planning around these things, right? And as much as I do love that about the French, that they know how to take time off, is the idea that I don't have access, right? The American in me comes out and I'm not able to get things when I want them. I mean, you want to eat sometimes after 2 or 2:30 and you can't. Places will close down. If you're hungry, forget it. You have to wait till dinner time. Forget dinner on a Sunday here in the countryside. You won't find anything. Mondays, pretty much everyone is closed. Now, I know it's a little different in the countryside than in Paris. Paris probably has better hours, but there's still this mentality that we don't cater to you all the time. There are hours to be respected. And so I miss that about having access to anything at any time in the US. Just seems like there's more of a 24/7 mentality, right? And that's cool for the consumer. That's cool because you get what you want whenever you want it. Now, again, there's a flip side to that, like there is with everything. That's part of the grind culture, as I call it in the US, where you as a company, as a service provider, you have to be on your toes, constantly thinking about the customer. It's all about them. It's all about servicing them as much as possible. And so, you know, from a work perspective, from you as part of this machine that the US has created, it's not pretty, right? It's not fun not to be able to take time off or long vacations. I mean, you're kind of stuck in this machinery. And so as good as it is on the receiving end, it takes a toll on you on the delivery end of things, right? And so again, I appreciate what the French do. They know how to put time off, personal time first. And I think that has huge value that I really appreciate. But when I want something, when I'm hungry on a Sunday or on a Monday or it's off hours and I want to grab a bite, it's tough. It's tough because, again, the American in me kicks in and it's like, no, me, I come first. Where are you guys, right? So it kind of double-edged sword there, right? Quick moment to talk about NordVPN, the sponsor of this video. I am a huge fan of NordVPN. I've been using them for years. In fact, we used them extensively when traveling on the road for the better part of 2 years as we were looking for where to live, and always felt safe and protected. Even now here in France, I can connect to the US as if I were there to access all my accounts, and so we can watch our favorite shows on Netflix and Peacock. NordVPN is more than just a VPN. It's a whole slew of tools. Scams, phishing, maliciousware, annoying ads, those are everywhere you go these days. And with NordVPN, you're pretty much blanket protected from all that. They also have a thing called NordPass, which is a password manager. If you don't have one, I highly recommend it. You can have all sorts of complex passwords, but only have to remember one in order to access them all. If this sounds interesting, check out the link below, nordvpn.com/beneath the surface. By trying them out, you're not only supporting this channel, but you do get 4 months for free when you sign up for their 2-year plan. And if you don't like them, no problem. They have a 30-day money-back guarantee. So check them out risk-free, and I think you're gonna love them the way we do. Thank you, NordVPN, for sponsoring this video. I miss the customer support that comes with that, right? It's part of the culture, the mentality of the customer comes first, we service the customer all the time. There's an idea, even though there's customer service hours, but there's an idea that they're there a lot of the time to help you out. I mean, I love calling the US for banking, investment reasons, and talking to someone, not only in English, like I said, because it's wonderful to be able to communicate with them, but the fact that they're there to help me, they have a positive attitude most of the time. They are there to find a solution for you. If you run into trouble, there's always the option to talk to a supervisor. There's just that angle, right, of trying to help you. Whereas the French, they just don't care as much. You may not get proper help over the phone. You might have to call multiple times. They don't like technology as much. Speaking to them in person is always better. You know, that's the number one way to get something done is when you interact in person. That makes it clunky, that makes it difficult living here, right? So I do miss, again, what appears to be this caring attitude towards me. It's not always true. It's not always there. Obviously, these are people who, you know, what bothers me is they can be very robotic, right? Very stiff because they're scripted and they're there to do a job. They're sort of like, where's the humanity in you kind of a thing. One thing that really, really annoys me is when I'm asked at the end of a conversation, is there anything else I can help you with? And that so irritates me every single time. It's like, I just spent 30 minutes with you trying to resolve an issue and you did a great job, you took care of it. That's it. That's all I have for you today. I would have told you by now, but they're required to ask you. It's part of their script, part of their process, and so you kind of roll with it. You know, in contrast, yes, the US does kick ass for the most part when it comes to customer service. That's really ingrained in their DNA. Another thing that I really appreciate about the US that I miss is the low barrier to entry for businesses. Looking back, it was so much easier, even if you're starting a corporation, to file the paperwork, get an ID, get going, and then you do it. You have your product or services, you hire people, get office space, whatever you need to do, and off you go. In France, and I've looked this up, even the French have to deal with heavy bureaucracy when it comes to starting a business. I thought it might have been more us as foreigners trying to work here and create entities, but it's like that for everybody because it is a very bureaucratic country. We're seeing it firsthand now, again, through the process of trying to get our visas upgraded because we are still visitors. And what happened is we submitted like stacks, 40-page stack, 50-page stack for Cecilia back in August. And it went to the right address. It was mailed in because that was the only way to get it in. You could not use it. There was no online way to submit. And no word back for months. I would send messages. I would try to contact people. You can't call them up because nobody will answer. Nobody would help us until finally the other day, just this week, we went to pick up our titres de séjour, which are our visitor visas. We had to renew those because we were running out of time. Only then, by interacting with actual human beings, were we able to get some answers that they had received them, they knew who we were, and that they were now going to accelerate things after so many months and try to find out what's going on and get back to us in the next few weeks. But what a process just to submit and be looked at. And so I can only imagine now creating the entities and moving forward. It might be a huge pain in the ass, but you do what you need. You do what you need because that's what we want, and we'll adapt. But in looking at the US really, again, because of that doing business mentality, money-driven business mentality, it goes hand in hand with that. It's just making it easy for people to run a business. Anyway, that's my list of things that I miss about the US. If you live abroad, I'd love to know what things you miss. If you agree with any of mine, if you have yours that you might want to share, please leave a comment. Please do subscribe, like this video if you enjoyed it. It really helps with the growth of the channel. I mean, at the end of the day, there's pros and cons to every country. It was interesting to see how in every pro that I can mention about the US or France is the flip side. It's the things you give up or don't have because you have the one main thing. But that's fine. You have to calculate what works for you, what pros work best for you. And for us, it's what we get out of France. And then you calculate that way and you make that choice. And so there's no perfect place. Every place will have its good things and its not so good things. And it's just how it goes. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.